Today's match is between Barbamon and the Royal Knights, and we have some footage of how this conflict all started.
Hey, it's my lucky day! A penny!
Your luck just ran out!
Hey man, he's back! You're crushing my arm!
Unhand that penny or the arm comes off!
Barbamon is already high rolling, so they're going to be going first, hatching the Sunamon. This classic from BT6 lets you draw when you trash from your own hand. Then they're going to digivolve into the Gabumon, potentially setting up some memory game for the following turn. Then they're dropping the Keenan, so the Royal Knights player has to choose if they trash a Tamer option. If not, Barbamon's going to draw and gain a memory. That means the Royal Knights player only has 2 memory to start their turn. They're going to hatch the King Drasil, which immediately puts another King Drasil underneath it from the stack. King Drasil reduces the cost of Royal Knights by 4, and then another 1 for each of its sources. He's going to play the Omnimon instead of playing a Royal Knight though. The own play will draw him a card and then pass the turn with 2 memory. The Barbamon player is going to move out the Gabumon. Gabumon's starter main phase effect is going to gain them a memory because their opponent has a Digimon. They're going to digivolve into the EX8 Devimon. It has the effect when digivolving to trash a card in their hand to give an opponent's Digimon. When this Digimon is deleted, trash a card in your hand. That effect is going on the Omnimon, and they are drawing for the Sunamon effect. Then digivolving into the Ferrismon. If their opponent has 5 or fewer cards in hand, they will gain a memory. If they've got 7 or more, they trash 1, but they're at 6, which is going to mean that nothing happens. It's a terrible outcome for the Barbamon player. Royal Knights loads in another King Drasil. They can reduce something by a cost of 6, but before they do that, they're going to swing the Omnimon. That will be blocked by the Ferrismon, but they will be able to load in a Royal Knight into the King Drasil stack, choosing the Gallantmon. But the Omnimon did have an on-delete given to it by the Devimon. They are going to trash a card in hand. In Royal Knights, every card matters, so getting rid of one is still a big deal. They've chosen to get rid of the Crimson mode and then play out the Magnamon. And with the King Drasil reduction, that doesn't cost them anything. Then playing out the Systemon Blanc, that's going to allow them to trash a card in hand and then draw 2. That's going to leave them with 4 cards in hand, which isn't a lot when going up against a Barbamon player. A lot of their beneficial effects now trigger because they have 5 or less. The Barbamon player is going to draw and hatch another Sunamon, then digivolving into a Gabumon. They do only have 1 memory to work with, so they're going to play out the Barbamon X, passing on 2. Both the Barbamon and the Gabumon starter main effects could gain the memory, which means that they might have a decent turn next time. The Royal Knights player is going to draw their card for turn. They are then going to load up the last King Drasil from their eggs. Magnamon also gets loaded into the stack, and its all turns effect will draw them a card because it has left the battlefield. The cost of Royal Knights is now reduced by 9, but they play the Royal Knights of the Purge option, which is reduced by 3 for the King Drasil's inheritable effect. That not only draws them a card, but also lets them load up another source into the King Drasil stack, passes the turn on 1. Gabumon is going to move out from raising. They're going to gain a memory because of the Systemon Blanc being on the field. They trash a card from the Barbamon X effect rather than giving them the extra memory. Gabumon then digivolves into EX6 Devimon. The when digivolving will delete the Systemon Blanc because they have 5 or less cards in hand. But Systemon Blanc had already done its job, made sure that they drew into what they needed, and now Ferrismon is going to swing at security, going to draw 1 and trash 1 from the Gabumon when attacking effect. Barbamon can play things from trash, so they want to make sure that they load up the right resources. Sunamon will draw them a card from trashing a card in hand, and then the Devimon effect is also a draw trash. With all that out of the way, the check goes through, and they're going to hit a Death X in security, so they will get deleted. They do miss the on deletion of Ferrismon, which means that they should have 1 more memory. They're going to play Darkwing Delusion for 1, mainly just to set their opponent to 1, but they do get to trash 3 cards from the top of their deck, and Devimon gets Sec +1 until the end of the turn. There are no other effects to trigger, so that is going to pass over to the Royal Knights player. They're going to start their turn, draw a card, and they can reduce a card's cost by 10. So Lord Knightmon only costs 1. Lord Knight's on play allows them to play a level 4 Digimon, so they're going to play a Omnimon, drawing 1, and then Keenan is going to be able to suspend to gain 1 memory because a Digimon was played by an effect. Barbamon is going to have to be wary though because Lord Knight can redirect, so no cheeky checks this turn. They will start their turn, unsuspend, and hatch the Sunamon. At the start of the main phase, the Barbamon X effect triggers, and the Royal Knights player opts not to trash a card, so they will gain a memory. Devimon digivolves into the Ferrismon, so they're going to get the when digivolving effect. The opponent has less than 5 cards in hand, so they're going to gain 1 memory. They're then going to digivolve into the Barbamon. The when digivolving effect of Barbamon allows them to trash a card at random from the opponent's hand, so we'll see what they are able to grab. Ooh, and they managed to grab out the Omnimon. They're then able to hard play the Ferrismon with the Barbamon's all turns effect. Can play out a 10 cost purple card, but they reduce the amount by 4 because of the number of cards in the Royal Knight player's hand. Lord Knightmon is going to be loaded into the stack. They now reduce the cost of Royal Knights by 11. Omnimon can swing in, and if deleted, they are going to be able to load in another. The Ferrismon can block, but they choose not to. Running into the Barbamon, so it does get deleted. They can load in Dynasmon, so that's another source, and that does reduce it by 12. They're going to immediately slam down the second Omnimon that they had in hand.
What? No. What? No. What? No.
They must have kept that one up their sleeve, and now they get to play out all their Royal Knights. Galen, Magna, Ganku, Lord Knight, and Dynasmon all hit the field. They have a number of on plays to trigger. They're choosing to start with the Dynasmon, so they search the top 4 and they can grab 2 Royal Knights. The rest go to the trash. Then the Lord Knight can play a level 4 or lower from trash. They're going to choose the Omecamon, which will draw them another card. It's at this point that the Barbamon player is going to choose to suspend the Keenan to gain that 1 memory from them playing a Digimon by an effect. Gankumon's effect is now going to let them play a Systemon from trash, but they're going to opt to not do the trash 1 draw 2 because that would mean that Barbamon can play out something else again. The Gallantmon on play allows them to delete something with 6,000 DP or less, so that's going to be the Ferrismon. On deletion, they will gain a memory because they have 5 or less cards in hand. And now the onslaught begins. They're starting with the Gallantmon to get a bit more removal. That'll delete the Barbamon X, and that's 1 check at 13,000, and it's definitely going to live that. Omnimon will take a swing and live that check as well. Then we've got Gankumon, then Magnamon, and they're going to use Systemon Blanc to finish the game. Game 2 is going to see the Royal Knights player going first. They hatch the King Drasil and get to load in once. Much like the other games, they're going to start by playing the Omecamon, hopefully drawing into more Royal Knights and then able to load in some more when that gets deleted. Barbamon is going to hatch the Sunamon egg and digivolve into the Gabumon. It looks like they might be missing a level 4 because they're going to go straight into hard playing the Neo Devimon. That will delete the Omecamon because they only have 5 cards in hand, but they do get to load in the Alphamon into the Yggdrasil stack. But they will pass turn and give them 3 memory to work with. So they're going to load in another King Drasil. They can already reduce the cost of their Royal Knights by 7, but they're going to play another Omecamon, setting the Barbamon player to 1, drawing a card for the on-play effect. Barbamon will draw their card per turn, and they're going to start by moving out the Gabumon, gaining a memory from the start main phase effect. They'll quickly digivolve into the EX6 Devimon, and because they have 5 or less cards in hand, they can delete level 3 or lower, but Omecamon is level 4, so they dodge that. Ferrismon is then digivolved into, and they're going to be able to gain that 1 memory because of the 5 or less cards in hand. That will pass turn on 2 memory still, so the Royal Knights player is going to draw, load in their last King Drasil into the stack. They can reduce the cost of their Royal Knights by 8. They're going to swing in the Omecamon first. Will get blocked by Ferrismon. The undeletion will allow them to load in the Leopardmon into the King Drasil stack, reducing the cost by 9. They're going to play out the Dynasmon for a cost of 1. That lets them search the top 4 cards of their deck. They're able to grab 2 Royal Knights and then trash the rest. They're choosing to take the Omnimon and the Gankumon and trash the Examon and the Leopardmon. Now to pass turn without giving away too much memory, they'll play the Royal Knights of the Purge option. That's reduced to a cost of 3 because of the King Drasil inheritable. That lets them draw a card and then load in another source, so Craniamon goes into the King Drasil stack. The Barbamon player draws for turn. They're going to hatch the Sunamon egg, and then they'll digivolve into the Barbamon X. That does cost them 1. That does only leave them with 1 memory to work with. They're going to digivolve into a level 6, this being Golfmon. Both players now have to trash down to a hand size of 5. The Royal Knights player is already at 5, so they don't need to do anything. The Barbamon player is going to get rid of 2 cards. Because they've trashed a card in hand, they will draw 1 from the Sunamon effect, and they have put in the 7th Dual Rise into trash, so that may come up later in the game. Dynasmon gets loaded into the stack, and now they can reduce costs by 11, so they're going to play out the Gankumon for a cost of 2. Gankumon's on play will allow them to play out the All-Force Vidramon, and that's going to be able to strip all the sources from the Ferrismon and then return it to hand, so they won't get the on-deletion effect of that Ferrismon. That does leave the Golfmon on the field, but it won't be able to do checks because the Gankumon blocker is going to get in the way of that, and Shoto is going to be played, which will also be able to give the all-force blocker as well in case multiple checks come out from nowhere. Barbamon is going to draw their card for turn. They're going to move out this Barbamon X. The Royal Knights player says no thanks to trashing a card in their hand. They're going to gain a memory instead. For a cost of 3, they're going to play out the Keenan. Again, the Royal Knights player is going to choose to not trash a card in their hand. That means they get to draw a card and gain a memory. Probably the right choice to hold on to as many resources in hand as possible. But Golfmon is going to digivolve into the Ravemon Burst mode for a cost of 5. Going to be able to draw a card for digivolving and then look at their opponent's hand and trash 1 card from it. Definitely choosing to get rid of the Omnimon. That is their win con, and without it, they're going to have a lot harder of a time of winning this game. Then because they have 7 or fewer cards in hand, they should add the top card of their security to hand. Let me know if that does actually matter in the long run. King Drasil is going to absorb up some more sources. Cost of Royal Knights is now reduced by 12. Shoto is going to gain them a memory for turn as well, so they go up to 5. They've got a lot to work with. They are going to play the Gallantmon, and with its own cost reduction, it is going to be able to reduce the cost down to 0. The on play is going to be able to delete the Barbamon X because they have 6,000 DP or less. Then it's going to swing at security, because it can't delete something with 6,000 DP or less, and delete something with 13,000 DP or more, so Ravemon Burst Mode has been dealt with. Check goes through, and it's just going to be a Gabumon in security, so nothing to worry about. They are going to play the Lord Knightmon without the cost reduction, so it costs the full 11, setting their opponent to 6, which definitely is bold, but they need to find another Omnimon, so they'll play the Omecamon, which will draw them 1 card. But because something was played by an effect, Keenan can suspend to gain them an additional 1 memory. 7 is a lot to work with. We'll see what they're able to do with it. They're going to hatch the Sunamon in Raising, and then Digivolve into the Syakumon from EX8. They're then going to choose to hard play the Ferrismon for 6, which will keep it their turn because they have so much memory to work with, and gain them a memory as well from the on play. They're then going to Digivolve into the Barbamon, that when Digivolving will trash a card in their opponent's hand. They only have 3 cards to work with, so they're getting pretty low. They get rid of the Crimson mode, which definitely was an option for trying to close out these games since it won't get absorbed by the King Drasil. Before the Royal Knights player can start taking their turn, they do have to play out a card with the All Turns effect from Barbamon, choosing to play out the Neo Devimon. That on play is going to delete the Omecamon, which will mean they have to load in another source from hand. That's going to be the Dynasmon. That effect is mandatory, so there's no way around it. The Royal Knights player is going to start their turn. They're going to draw and load in the Gallantmon and the Lord Knightmon. The cost to play Royal Knights at this point is reduced by 14, and if they can see that one Omnimon, they've probably just got game straight away. Going to pop the Royal Knights option so that they can play something out. They're choosing to play out the Leopardmon. This isn't for blocker or to reduce any other cost. They're just trying to set up for maybe a bit of a sneaky tactic in hand. Depends on if the Barbamon player gets impatient or not, if that's going to pay off. They're just going to pass turn, setting their opponent to 3. They do realize that maybe they could have suspended the Keenan or something there, but because they were getting passed anyway, it doesn't matter. They don't have enough checks to be able to end the game here, so they're going to have to look to set up once again. They're moving out the Syakumon. They're not going to try and do any checks, actually. They're just going to immediately go into the Barbamon X. They'll draw for Digivolving, and then the when Digivolving effect will give their opponent the choice. Do they trash from their hand, or do they get to play a card? And they're going to choose to trash the Susanamon Ace. Because they trash a card from their hand, the Barbamon X effect will trash a card from their security. Then they're going to Digivolve the Neo Devimon into the Barbamon. So now they get to trash that very last card in hand. They're going to leave the Royal Knights player with absolutely nothing. Their plan is revealed. They played out the Leopardmon so they could potentially ace into the Imperial Dramon. The Barbamon effect is going to allow them to play out a 10 cost or less Digimon. They're going to play out the Ferrismon, but I think they get it mixed up and they gain a memory from that. It's only when Digivolving or on deletion that they should be able to gain that memory. This is going to pass back over to the Royal Knights player. They're going to load up the King Drasil with the Leopardmon, and the Shoto should gain them a memory here as well. So technically they should be at 4. They can play out the Craniumon for free, and then they're just going to pass turn. So it looks like that extra memory that they should have had doesn't really matter in the end anyway. Back over to the Barbamon player's turn. They're going to hatch the last Sunamon egg, and because their opponent has no cards in hand, there shouldn't be any tricks that they can run into, so they're going to swing in the Syakumon. They choose not to block with the Craniumon. They probably want to save that for something else, so the Syakumon check will go through. It will get deleted. On deletion, they're able to draw 1 and trash 1. We get to see that they're running the Moon Millenniummon, and you know what? They're just going to trash that. And now we get to see one of the most devious plays I've ever seen in my life. They're going to play out the Gilmon, because there's 20 more cards in both players' trashes. You're going to be able to swing with Rush. They do get deleted in security, which is all part of the plan. Barbamon is going to swing at security, and it's going to give the opponent a choice. Do they trash a card in hand, or do they get to play out a level 3 Digimon from trash without paying the cost? With no cards in hand, they're going to play out the Gilmon, and it gains Rush. They are going to choose to block the Barbamon, so that will get deleted, but now the Gilmon swings for another check. It does get deleted again, and now Barbamon X attacks, and it has the same inheritable. Without anything to trash, the Gilmon's going to come back out. That check is going to go through. There shouldn't be anything to be worried about, and there isn't. It's just going to be another Shoto, and then Gilmon will swing for game. That takes us into game 3. Now that we've seen what both decks can do, it's down to who will be able to adapt the best, but they don't have a lot of time left in the round, so they're playing quickly. The Royal Knights players started playing out the Omecamon as they have in the previous games, drawing a card with the on play. Then the Barbamon player is going to hatch the Sunamon, Digivolve into the Syakumon X. That costs them 1, and then they're going to play out the Devimon. On play, they'll trash a card from hand, so they can give the Omecamon. On deletion, trash a card from their hand. That will pass turn on 2, keeping the Royal Knights player low on memory. They'll draw a card for turn and then load up the King Drasil. The cost to play Royal Knights is reduced by 6. They'll see if they can reduce that further by swinging the Omecamon, but they hit the Wisdom training, so no deletions. Means they don't have to trash anything. Then they're going to play out the Jessmon. That is only for a play cost of 5, and it does delete the Devimon on the field. Syakumon X moves out from Raising. They're going to give the option to gain a memory or trash card, and they're going to gain the memory. Barbamon is then just going to be be hard played. The on play, trashing a card from the opponent's hand. Let's see if this time they get the soul read. Is there an Omnimon in hand, and what do they steal? They're going to get rid of the Examon. They're going to fan out their hand a little bit, and we're able to have a little cheeky spy. It doesn't look like they've got the Omnimon anyway. Devimon's going to be hard played. They're going to give the effect back to the Omekamon by trashing a card in hand. But the Royal Knights player is on 8 memory, so they've got a lot to work with. King Drasil will load up another source and take in the Jesmon. Before doing anything else, they're going to play out the Gallantmon, and that's going to cost them 5. They're going to delete the Siakumon X first, and then they'll get the same effect when attacking. They choose to swing straight away. They're going to delete the Devimon. The check goes through, and there really isn't much that can threaten them in security at 13,000 DP. The Omekamon is also going to swing in and will be deleted. That means they can load up another source, but they don't have anything that they're choosing to add. There was a bit of a confusing exchange that happened there, but in the end, because a card was trashed, Barbamon gets to play out the Devimon. Devimon will trash some cards on play, and then they're just going to pass turn for 3. Sunamon is hatched in the raising area. They're then going to swing the Devimon, but they're not swinging at security. They're going to actually swing at the Gallantmon. First, when attacking, will trash 3 cards. Then, because it gets deleted by swinging at the Gallantmon, which doesn't get deleted, it's going to come back. Their opponent has to trash a card in hand. They've only got 2 cards. They're going to trash another Shoto. Then they're just going to hard play the Barbamon. That's going to trash the last card in their opponent's hand. And here we get to see all hope is lost. They trash the Omnimon.
Fly, you fools.
Technically, the first Barbamon effect should have triggered before, but we're just going to run them both now. They play out the Neo Devimon and the Devimon back from trash. The Devimon's on play is going to trash 3 cards from the top of the deck. Then it's going to pass over turn at 9. Gallantmon is going to get absorbed into the King Drasil stack, and then they're going to flip their card face up. It's the Gankumon, it's not the Omnimon, so they don't have a way to end the game. Now they're thinking what is best to play out with the Gankumon effect. It's all they've got to play. It doesn't cost much to play it. They still have so much memory and no cards in hand to use it. You're going to choose to play out the Gallantmon, which will delete the Devimon. They'll have to trash a card in hand, but they can't. Gallantmon does inherently have Rush, so they're going to swing. They get to do the effect again, but because it's 6,000 DPLS or 13 or higher, their opponent's board manages to dodge the effect perfectly, and they just get the 1 check at security and have to pass. They still have 5 security, and the Barbamon player does only have 3 checks on the board. The Barbamons aren't as useful now because you can't trash cards from a hand that has no cards in hand, so they'll digivolve into the Barbamon X. Because they can't trash from their hand, the Barbamon player will be able to play out a Fallen Angel with a cost of 7 or less. They're choosing the Devimon, which on play will trash 3 from the top of the deck again. Cracking the Wisdom Training, then they're going to digivolve into the Neo Devimon. That'll only cost them 1. The when digivolving will trigger, but only deletes the level 4 or lower Digimon, and his opponent has 2 level 6s. I accidentally cut out that they digivolved into the Siakumon X in raising for 1, and then they're going to play the Dark Wings Delusion for 1. That's how they pass turn, giving their opponent as little memory as possible. King Drasil will absorb the Ganku and the Gallant, and then they're going to see if they can top deck the Omnimon, but it's a Dynasmon, which does mean that they might be able to draw into it. So they're going to be able to play the Dynasmon for free. Looking at the top 4 cards, do they see the Omnimon? Unfortunately, they do not, so they're going to grab the Craniumon and the Magnamon instead, trashing the rest. Then going to play out the Magnamon. That's going to cost them 7. At the very least, that is a blocker that will draw them a card when it leaves the field. The Siakumon X is going to move out of raising, and they have 5 checks on the board against 5 security. We'll see if they can do any shenanigans like they did last game. They're going to start by digivolving into the Barbamon, which will trash that last card in hand, which we know is the Craniumon. Because their opponent did trash a card in hand, they're going to be able to use the Barbamon effects to play out 2 Digimon with a play cost of 10 or less, choosing the 2 Gabumons, and they trash the security because of the Barbamon X effect. Because of the Magnamon having blocker though, they are still 1 check short. They're going to send in the Neo Devimon. They are going to block. That will delete the Neo Devimon, so they can play out a Dan Devi from trash if they've got it. If they don't have it, they've called time and round. They're just going to start swinging, so they send in all of their Barbamons and the Siakumon X. That clears their security. They're going to have to start looking at what was going to happen, and they did have an Omnimon in the next 2 turns, but that Royal Knights option might have been able to get it to them next turn. It all depends on if the Barbamon gave them 3 or more memory. Let us know who you think would have taken that set, and we'll catch you next time.